The Galactic Council chamber was a marvel of alien engineering, a vast dome of crystalline panels refracting light into a kaleidoscope of colors. Yet, for all its grandeur, it felt suffocating. Commander Elena Drake stood at the center of the circular room, surrounded by towering figures of every imaginable species. Their eyes, glowing, segmented, or stalked, were all fixed on her. Some burned with disdain, others shimmered with wary curiosity. Elena took a deep breath, steadying her voice against the cacophony of murmurs. High Arbiter Vorthas, members of the Council, I am not here to argue hypotheticals. The AI swarm is real. We intercepted their signals less than a light cycle away. They've already destroyed 2 colonies. If we don't act, if we don't prepare, there won't be a galaxy left to protect. The chamber erupted. Voices clashed in a discordant medley, buzzing, growling, clicking. The air shimmered with tension. High Arbiter Vorthas, his translucent, eel-like form perched on a raised dais, raised a spindly arm. The room fell silent. You humans, Vorthas hissed, his voice cold and deliberate. Always resort to panic and aggression. War is your nature, Commander Drake. That is why the Council restricts your weapons and monitors your fleets. Your species cannot be trusted with power. Elena clenched her fists but kept her expression neutral. This isn't about power. It's about survival. The swarm doesn't negotiate. They don't recognize borders or treaties. They consume. And yet, Vorthas countered, his glowing eyes narrowing. We have no evidence of this so-called swarm, only the word of humans, a species prone to fabricating threats to justify their violence. Until we see irrefutable proof, the Council will not authorize any militarized response. Proof? Elena's voice rose, sharp as a blade. By the time you have your proof, it'll be too late. Entire systems will be gone. A three-eyed delegate from the Zarnath cluster leaned forward, his gelatinous body rippling. Perhaps, Commander, he said in a languid tone, humans should focus on their assigned roles within the Council, terraforming barren worlds and supplying resources. Leave the matters of security to those more capable. Elena's jaw tightened. She scanned the room, searching for any hint of support. There was none. The Council had always viewed humanity as a necessary but dangerous addition to their ranks, useful only when tightly controlled. She straightened her back and looked directly at Vorthas. The swarm doesn't care about your politics or your prejudices. They're coming. And when they do, don't say I didn't warn you. Vorthas's lips curled into something resembling a smile. Your warning has been noted and dismissed. Return to your station, Commander. Elena turned sharply and strode out of the chamber, her boots echoing against the polished floor. She didn't wait to see the smug looks exchanged by the Council members. They wouldn't listen. They never did. The Resolute hung in the shadow of a dying star, its sleek black hull blending seamlessly with the void. Inside the command deck, Elena's team waited for her return. Lieutenant Ravi Kale, her second-in-command, stood by the holodable, his brow furrowed as he studied a projection of the intercepted swarm signals. How'd it go? Ravi asked as Elena entered. The grim set of her jaw was answer enough. They're not budging, she said, peeling off her uniform jacket and tossing it onto a chair. They think we're making it up. Typical. Ravi exhaled sharply. So we're on our own. Elena stepped up to the holodable, her eyes scanning the swirling patterns of data. The signals were unlike anything she'd seen, erratic, yet disturbingly precise. We've always been on our own, she said quietly. But this time, it's worse. They're underestimating the swarm, and that's going to get a lot of people killed. Or worse, Ravi added. Enslaved. You've read the reports from the outer systems. These things don't just destroy, they assimilate. Elena nodded. And the Council's arrogance is giving them all the time they need. The deck doors hissed open, and Dr. Kira Ansel, the ship's lead scientist, hurried in, holding a datapad. Commander, you need to see this, she said, her voice urgent. We just intercepted a distress beacon from the Vander colony. It matches the swarm's patterns. Elena's pulse quickened. How far? Less than a light cycle, Kira replied. If we leave now, we can reach them in time. Ravi frowned. The council won't authorize a rescue op. They don't have to, Elena said firmly. This isn't their decision. Ravi hesitated. You realize what this means, right? If we go against the council's orders. They've already written us off, Elena interrupted. We're not waiting for their permission while people are dying. The Resolute burst out of hyperspace above Vanda 3, a lush green planet now marred by columns of black smoke. The sight made Elena's stomach churn. The colony was burning. Status? She barked as the crew scrambled to their stations. Multiple swarm signatures detected on the surface, Kira reported. Their ships are small, fast, hard to lock onto. Prep the dropships, Elena ordered. Ravi, you're with me. Kira, stay here and coordinate. We're getting those people out. Minutes later, Elena and a small team descended to the planet's surface. The scene was worse than she imagined. Buildings lay in ruins, their once bright facades scorched black. Swarm drones, spindly, insect-like machines with glowing red eyes, scuttled through the wreckage, dragging away survivors. Move fast and stay low, Elena whispered into her comm. We don't want to draw attention. The team advanced through the rubble, using the shadows for cover. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid stench of burning metal. Elena spotted a group of survivors huddled in the remnants of a marketplace, their faces pale with terror. Go! She ordered, covering her team as they ushered the civilians toward the dropship. A piercing shriek cut through the air. Elena turned just in time to see a swarm drone lunging at her. She fired her plasma pistol, the shot hitting the drone square in its glowing eye. It collapsed in a heap of sparking wires. More drones swarmed toward them, their movements unnervingly coordinated. We've got company! Ravi shouted. Fall back! Elena ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. The team retreated toward the dropship, firing as they went. The drones pressed closer, their red eyes glowing like malevolent stars. Elena reached the dropship last, turning to fire one final shot before the hatch closed. Get us out of here! She yelled to the pilot. As the dropship ascended, she looked out the viewport at the burning colony below. They had saved a handful of people, but the rest of Vanda 3 was lost. Back on the Resolute, Elena stood in the command deck, her hands gripping the edge of the holodable. The room was silent, the weight of their failure heavy in the air. This is just the beginning, she said, her voice low but resolute. If the Council won't act, then we will. Humanity's survival depends on it. The crew nodded. They didn't need orders. They were ready. The Resolute drifted in the quiet expanse of space, cloaked in darkness. Inside its steel walls, the command deck buzzed with quiet tension. The survivors from Vanda 3 were being cared for in the medical bay, their hollow eyes a haunting reminder of what the swarm had done. But Commander Elena Drake wasn't resting. She was staring at the holodable, the intercepted signals from the swarm's network spiraling like a tangled web. This isn't random, Dr. Kira Ansel said, her fingers moving rapidly across the console. These patterns, they're deliberate. The swarm isn't just mindless destruction. They're learning. Elena didn't look up. Learning what? How to counter us, Kira said grimly. Their movements, their tech, everything we've seen indicates they're adapting. Fast. Lieutenant Ravi Kale stood nearby, arms crossed, his face shadowed with worry. So, what's the plan, Commander? We can't just sit here. If they're adapting, we need to get ahead of them. Elena straightened, her expression hardening. We need intel, real intel. Something that tells us what they're planning next. Kira, is there any way to trace their signals back to their source? Kira hesitated. Maybe. The swarm uses a decentralized communication system. But their network has a hub, a central node directing their actions. If we can locate it, we might be able to infiltrate their systems and learn what they're up to. That's a big might, Ravi muttered. It's better than nothing. Elena shot back. Kira, can you pinpoint the hub? Kira nodded, her fingers dancing over the console. The holodeck shifted, projecting a new image, a barren moon orbiting a gas giant, its surface dotted with strange, pulsating structures. There. The signals are strongest here. Ravi studied the image, his brow furrowing. Looks like a swarm outpost. Heavily fortified, no doubt. Elena's gaze didn't waver. We'll go in under the radar. A small team, no heavy firepower, strictly recon. We get the data and get out. No one engages unless absolutely necessary. Understood, Ravi said, though the tension in his voice was unmistakable. The dropship cut through the moon's thin atmosphere, its engines barely a whisper against the endless gray sky. Elena sat at the helm, her team strapped into the seats around her. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that settled in your chest and refused to let go. Ravi glanced at her. I assume you've thought about what happens if this goes south? Elena smirked faintly. I have. That's why we're not letting it go south. He huffed a quiet laugh, shaking his head. You always say that. And I'm usually right. The dropship landed in a jagged canyon, its walls providing cover from the swarm's scanners. The team disembarked quickly, weapons drawn, their boots crunching against the rocky ground. Above them, the sky was an eerie shade of gray-green, the gas giant looming like a watchful eye. Keep it tight, Elena said, her voice low. We're heading for that structure. She pointed to a dome-like building in the distance, its surface glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. Kira, stay on comms and guide us in. Copy that. Kira's voice crackled in their earpieces. You've got about 15 minutes before their patrols sweep the area. The team moved in silence, navigating the uneven terrain with practiced precision. As they approached the dome, the alien hum of the swarm's machinery grew louder, vibrating through the ground. Elena's grip on her rifle tightened. They reached the dome's outer wall, its surface smooth and cold to the touch. Ravi pulled out a portable cutting device, its blade hissing as it carved through the material. A section of the wall fell away, revealing a dimly lit corridor. Inside, Elena ordered, motioning for the team to move. The corridor was unnervingly silent, the only sound the faint buzz of the swarm's systems. The walls pulsed with light, as if the structure itself was alive. Elena led the way, her eyes scanning every shadow. Kira, we're in, she said quietly. Which way? Take the first left, Kira replied. The hub should be 2 levels down. The team followed her directions, their movements swift and precise. They reached a narrow shaft descending into the lower levels. Elena went first, sliding down a rope, her boots hitting the ground with a soft thud. The others followed. The hub was unlike anything they'd seen, a vast chamber filled with towering spires of black metal, their surfaces covered in shifting red lights. At the center was a large, spherical device, its surface rippling like liquid. Data streamed from it in glowing lines, feeding into the spires. This is it, Kira's voice said in their ears. The swarm's brain. Elena approached the sphere cautiously, pulling out a small device. Kira, I'm uploading the program. Let me know when we have the data. Copy. Just hold it steady. As the device interfaced with the sphere, the chamber seemed to come alive. The lights grew brighter, the hum louder. Elena's pulse quickened. Kira, how long? Almost there. Just a few more seconds. A sudden screech echoed through the chamber, sharp and mechanical. Elena spun around, her rifle raised. Swarm drones poured into the room, their spindly limbs clicking against the floor. Contact! Ravi shouted, firing the first shot. The team opened fire, their weapons lighting up the chamber in bursts of blue plasma. Kira, we're out of time! Elena yelled, dodging a drone's lunge. Got it! Kira's voice crackled. You've got the data! Get out of there! Fall back! Elena ordered, firing as she moved. The drones were relentless, their glowing red eyes fixed on the intruders. One lunged at Ravi, its claws slashing through his armor. He staggered but kept moving, firing point-blank into the drone's core. They reached the shaft, scrambling back up the ropes under fire. Elena was the last to ascend, her rifle slung over her shoulder as she climbed. A drone leapt for her, its claws missing her boot by inches. The team sprinted through the corridor, the sound of the drones chasing them like a storm. They burst out of the dome and into the open air, the dropship waiting for them with engines running. Go, go, go! Elena shouted as they boarded. The hatch sealed behind them, and the dropship lifted off, the swarm's drones swarming below like an angry hive. Back on the Resolute, the team gathered in the command deck, their armor scorched and their faces drawn. Kira was already analyzing the data, her eyes wide as lines of alien code streamed across her screen. This is... she began, then trailed off. What? Elena pressed. Kira looked up, her face pale. The swarm's next target, it's the Galactic Council's capital. The room fell silent. Elena's jaw tightened as she met Ravi's gaze. We warned them, she said. Now they'll have to face the consequences. The air on the Resolute's command deck was heavy. The tension was suffocating, like the moments before a storm. Elena Drake stood at the holodable, staring at the projection of Aeon Spire, the Galactic Council's capital. The swarm's attack trajectory glowed red, slashing through the space between their hive moon and the sprawling hub of alien civilization. They're moving faster than expected, Kira said, her voice steady but tight. We have less than 12 hours before the swarm hits Aeon Spire. The realization settled over the room like a weight. Ravi leaned against the edge of the table, his brows furrowed. We don't have enough firepower to stop them, Commander. Not even close. I know, Elena said. Her tone was calm, but her mind raced. She could see it already, thousands of lives snuffed out in an instant. The swarm wouldn't discriminate. They'd tear through the Council's fleets, its cities, its people. All because the Council refused to listen. She turned to face the room. This isn't just about Aeon Spire. If the swarm takes out the capital, they'll destabilize the entire galaxy. We can't let that happen. Then what's the play? Ravi asked. Elena straightened, her eyes sharp. We fight. But we don't do it alone. The Resolute dropped out of hyperspace just beyond the edge of Aeon Spire's system, its cloaking systems keeping it hidden from the bustling traffic of the capital. The Council still didn't know the swarm was coming, and they certainly didn't know Elena was back. That was about to change. Patch me through to the Council, Elena ordered. Ravi hesitated. They're not going to like this. I don't care, she said, her voice unwavering. Do it. The holodable flickered to life, and the image of High Arbiter Vorthas appeared. His translucent features twisted into a scowl the moment he saw her. Commander Drake, he said icily. You have no authority to contact this chamber. With respect, Arbiter, I don't have time for protocol, Elena said. The swarm is coming. They'll be here in less than 12 hours. Vorthas's expression hardened. We've received no such reports. Are you attempting to spread panic again? This isn't panic, it's fact, Elena snapped. We infiltrated one of their hives. We have their data. They're targeting Aeon Spire. If you don't mobilize your defenses now, there won't be anything left to defend. The chamber behind Vorthas erupted into murmurs, the alien delegates exchanging worried glances. But Vorthas remained unmoved. Even if what you say is true, humanity has no role in this matter. Your kind cannot be trusted with. Elena slammed her fist on the table, cutting him off. Stop hiding behind your arrogance. This isn't about humanity. It's about survival. If you don't act, you'll condemn everyone here to death. The murmurs grew louder. A serpentine delegate with scales that shimmered like glass leaned forward. High Arbiter, if Commander Drake's information is accurate, we cannot afford inaction. Vorthas's glowing eyes narrowed. For a moment, the room was silent, the tension crackling like a live wire. Finally, he spoke. You have one chance, Commander. Present your evidence. Kira, standing at Elena's side, tapped her console. The swarm's data filled the holodable, lines of alien code and tactical maps painting a picture of devastation. The room fell silent as the truth sank in. This is their path, Elena said, pointing to the red trajectory. They'll be here in less than 12 hours. And they won't stop with Aeon Spire. The silence broke as the chamber erupted into chaos. Some delegates shouted for immediate action, others demanded further analysis. Vorthas raised a hand, silencing them. "We will mobilize," he said, his tone begrudging. "But make no mistake, Commander, this changes nothing about humanity's standing in the Council." Elena didn't care. "Just be ready." Back on the Resolute, the crew worked at a breakneck pace. The ship's small but capable arsenal was being prepped for battle, and messages were sent to nearby human colonies, calling for every available ship to join the fight. They wouldn't be enough to match the swarm's numbers, but they didn't have to. They just needed to buy time. Elena stood in the command deck, her hands resting on the edge of the holodeck as she watched the preparations. Ravi approached, his expression grim. "You think they'll actually fight?" he asked. "They don't have a choice," Elena replied. "Even Vorthas isn't arrogant enough to let Aeon Spire fall without a fight. And if we fail?" Elena looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "Then we make sure the galaxy knows humanity didn't go down without a fight." The first swarm ships appeared on the edge of the system, their black, insected forms blotting out the stars. The Council's fleet moved to intercept, their sleek, shimmering vessels forming a defensive line around Aeon Spire. The Resolute hung back, its cloaking systems keeping it hidden as Elena watched the battle unfold. "They're testing the defenses," Kira said, her voice tight. "Sending in smaller ships to probe for weaknesses." "They'll find them," Elena said grimly. The Council's fleets were advanced, but they weren't prepared for the swarm's sheer ferocity. As if on cue, the swarm's main force arrived. Massive hive ships loomed over the battlefield, their surfaces writhing with drones. The Council's ships opened fire, beams of light and plasma streaking through the void. The swarm retaliated with brutal efficiency, their weapons tearing through the defenders' ranks. "Commander, we've got incoming!" Ravi shouted. A cluster of swarm ships broke off from the main battle, heading straight for the Resolute. Elena's heart raced. "Brace for impact! All weapons online!" The Resolute decloaked, its guns blazing as it engaged the incoming swarm. The ship shook violently as enemy fire raked its hull, but the crew held their ground. "Target the lead ship," Elena ordered. "If we take it out, the rest will scatter." The Resolute's weapons focused on the largest swarm vessel, pounding it with everything they had. The ship erupted in a fiery explosion, and the remaining swarm ships veered off, regrouping with the main force. Elena turned her attention back to the holodeck. The Council's fleet was faltering, their lines breaking under the swarm's relentless assault. But they were holding, barely. "Kira, do we have anything that can tip the scales?" Elena asked. Kira hesitated, then nodded. "There's one thing. The data we pulled from the swarm's hive, it includes a signal that disrupts their coordination. If we can broadcast it, it might give us the edge we need." "Do it," Elena said. "Ravi, patch it through to every ship in the fleet." The signal went live, a piercing frequency that rippled through the swarm's ranks. Their movements grew erratic, their coordination faltering. The Council's fleet seized the opportunity, pressing the attack. But the swarm wasn't finished. Their hive ships began converging on Aeon Spire, preparing for a final, devastating strike. "This is it," Elena said, her voice steady. "All ships, focus fire on those hive ships. We stop them here, or it's over." The Resolute joined the charge, its weapons blazing. The battle raged on, a chaotic dance of fire and destruction. Elena fought with everything she had, knowing that failure wasn't an option. And then, finally, the tide turned. The largest hive ship exploded, its debris scattering like dying embers. The remaining swarm ships faltered, their assault collapsing. Cheers erupted on the Resolute's command deck, but Elena didn't join them. She stared at the holodeck, her mind already racing ahead. This wasn't the end. The swarm was still out there, waiting. And humanity would be ready.